Welcome on back to the week 4 already, Joe. Week 4, we say it all the time. Once it gets here, it goes very fast. But the week 4 college football picks and preview show here at Beef Up Front. Coming off another strong week, we are with one of the hottest gamblers in the world in Joseph Kmetz, who is now 4-0, including his week 0 lock of the week. He cashes in last week on Utah minus 23.5 at Wyoming. My lock of the week falls with USC at Purdue, but both of our dogs were barking last week. Outright winners, Tulane plus 1.5 at home. I gave out on the show. They wound up being favorites at the end, but they still cash versus Duke. And then Cal plus 2.5 at home for you, Joe, takes care of Minnesota. And that's coming off last week as well, both of our locks of the week and dogs of the day. So our end of the pick segment is going really well. Make sure to stay tuned for the whole episode, and we'll give out those plays at the end for this week. But Joe, some pretty crazy games last week. We both had Georgia Tech winning outright over Clemson. Georgia, Tennessee, I unfortunately didn't get to see that much because of the Penn State game, but got to see the end. That was one of the games of the year. Georgia winds up pulling it out in the end. Miami's looking awesome. They absolutely dismantle South Florida. Texas A&M takes out Notre Dame at Notre Dame in a thriller. And then DJ Lagway at LSU throws 5 picks in his first ever SEC road game. Pretty wild. And then our last game of the week that we covered last week, South Carolina falls to Vandy. Lenore Sellers gets hurt in that one. But Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt are ranked. Again, they're looking like one of the stories of college football again. And there's a legit chance they could be 5-0 or 6-0, I think I saw when they face LSU in just a few weeks. So a lot of storylines. We got some great matchups this week. But, Joe, welcome back. Mr. Lock of the Week, how are we?
I'm feeling good, Coyle. We're starting to get down to, we're sitting here week 4. Already kind of crazy that this is our 5th or 4th show of the year. We had some issues with week 1. We didn't get a show out. But we're already sitting in week 4. Some of these teams after this week are going to be a quarter of the way through the season. You're starting to kind of get a little bit of a picture of like, okay, who's good, who's bad, like which teams are legit. This is going to be a big week with separating that. The games we're going to break down are huge ranked matchups, a couple of, non-ranked teams playing against ranked teams, but still big games nonetheless. I'm really looking forward to this show, really looking forward to this week, and let's get into it.
All right. Yeah, like you said, let's get into it. And we have I feel like we have Tulane on the show every week for our G5 team, but they're credit to them. They're challenging themselves, what they have so far. Duke, Northwestern, and this week they have Ole Miss on the schedule. They're going to be in very good position to get that G5 spot once it rolls around, especially if they're able to upset Ole Miss this week. We'll talk about that game in just a little bit. But we started off on Saturday with big noon kickoff for a Big 12 matchup. Number 17, Texas Tech at 3-0, at number 16, Utah, also 3-0. This is a 10 a.m. kick over there in Salt Lake City, so interesting kind of body clock game. Interested if Utah is really out there tailgating that much for this one. If so, that's an early morning. Utah gets a 3.5-point favorite here at home, over under 57.5. 2 of the top 15 scoring offenses in the country so far. Joe, thoughts on Texas Tech and Utah this week?
So I'm going to go with Utah here, 28-21. I love Devin Napier. I think Utah's offensive line is really, really good. And ultimately, this game being at Utah is going to be the big difference here. 10 a.m. kick. I'm going with the under here, so I'm going Utah 28, Texas Tech 21. Still think it's going to be a competitive game. Still think it's going to be close. But I think 57.5 is a little bit high, especially, like you said, Coyle, 10 o'clock. Kids are waking up probably 4 or 5 in the morning to get there. And that's, really tough, especially for Texas Tech. You got to sleep in a hotel room the night before, get up, go to the game. I think Utah's going to win this game close. I really love Utah's chances in the Big 12. Even if they lose this game, they still have Arizona State and I guess Kansas State isn't doing good now, but they had a bunch of the preseason favorites coming to Utah. I know we spoke about them during week 0, but I'm with Utah here to win this game.
I'm going with Utah too, but I am going to take Texas Tech to cover. I think this is one of those spots where the schedule makers didn't do Utah particularly any favors. We see this time and time again with Fox and big noon kickoff, trying to get the primetime Fox game on that noon slot. If this is a Utah night game, you got to write in ink that Utah wins this game. But the earlier, the better, I think, for Texas Tech, because that Utah environment at night usually one of the toughest environments in all of college football. So Texas Tech, probably very thankful that they're playing this early, but still interested to see how these teams come out at such an early kickoff. 10 a.m., I believe it is for Utah, and I think it's an 11 a.m. kick for Texas Tech, so a little more normal for them. But still, it's a bit of a spot where these teams could come out sleepy in this one. Utah being the 3.5-point favorite, I could definitely see them winning by a touchdown, but I could definitely see Texas Tech too going to Utah and winning this game outright. So I'm definitely going to take Texas Tech to cover that 3.5. I think they can keep it within that field goal range there. But the thing is with this matchup, when you look at both Utah and Texas Tech and their schedules thus far, neither of them have played anyone. So this is their first major test. Utah being at home, that defense, the offensive line, I think they're just a little bit stronger in the trenches. I love Devin Dampier. I'm excited to see what he can do against a major test here in Texas Tech. But I think you got to just roll with the Utes at home to win this one. But Texas Tech keeps it close enough to cover the 3.5. I'll also go under 57.5. I touched on how these are two of the top scoring offenses in the country so far, but I think that also has a lot to do with their opponents and their schedule thus far. This is the best defense either team has played, and I think we see that out in the field. So give me Utah 27-24, Texas Tech plus 3.5, under 57.5. All right, the game I'm looking forward to the most this week, Joe, number 22 Auburn at 3-0 goes to number 11 Oklahoma 3-0 for a 3:30 kick on ABC. Oklahoma, a 6.5-point favorite here at home, over under 48.5. Was very surprised to see the number that big considering how Auburn looked against Baylor. And I think that they definitely have looked better than the last few years. Jackson Arnold revenge game possibly here.
I'm going Oklahoma here 35-28, so I'll take Oklahoma to cover by the hook. I love the over in this game. Jackson Arnold's revenge game is definitely something to keep an eye on, Coyle, like you said. But I love John Mateer. I love what he's doing in Oklahoma so far. And I do think on a much grander scale, you kind of saw at Duke with Devin Mensa going back to Tulane. You have a guy who left Oklahoma. Now, granted, a good thing for Oklahoma. I think they upgraded at quarterback. But still, you got a guy that used to be on your team. Oklahoma fans still, I don't think, are going to be showing him a whole lot of love. And I think Oklahoma's going to win this game by a touchdown. It's going to be a competitive game. Wouldn't be shocked if Auburn covers here, but I already bet Oklahoma 6.5 yesterday. I think they're going to win by a touchdown or more. Like I said, I really love Mateer. And right now, if you had to ask me, like today, who's the guy who wins the Heisman, it's John Mateer.
Yeah, Mateer as of right now, Joe, the favorite at DraftKings at plus 800 to win the Heisman. Michigan, I thought was a good test, but this Auburn defense, I think, is just as kind of talented as that Michigan team. So let's see what he can do in this one. Jackson Arnold, though, Joe, I think he's got that kind of little swagger to him. I think he's got his confidence back. That Baylor game was an eye-popping game for me. He didn't really throw the ball that much, but they were able to run all over that Baylor defense, and Arnold has some legs. He went for over 100 yards in that one, at least one rushing touchdown, I remember, as well. And they got two stud receivers on the outside. Let's see now that they're in SEC play if they start to open it up a little bit. I was saying at the beginning of the year, I thought if everything shook right, talent-wise, Hugh Freeze being a very good offensive coach in my eyes, and if Arnold was able to kind of rejuvenate his career here, I thought Auburn could maybe be that surprise team in the SEC that goes like 9-3. And they haven't done anything thus far to make me go off of that judgment. So I'm actually going to have the upset here in the spot with Auburn and Jackson Arnold being the story of college football this week, going to Norman, Oklahoma, and knocking off the Sooners outright. Give me 31-28 on a last-second field goal here by Auburn. So Auburn plus 6.5, and I'll ride with the over of 48.5 as well in Jackson Arnold's return game. All right, team we kind of touched on at the beginning as well with Tulane, our G5 team of the week. If you're new to the show, we do our top 5 games just overall, and then we throw in the top G5 team kind of in the mix, or if they have a good opponent, or if it's a really good G5 versus G5. Memphis and Arkansas is playing this week. I was tempted to throw that one in there as well. We'll talk about that game a little bit towards the end. But Tulane out of the American at 3-0, as I touched on, already beat Duke, already beat Northwestern in the early going. They have a chance to really solidify themselves as the best G5 team if they go to number 13, Ole Miss, who's also 3-0 and wins. 3:30 kick on ESPN. Ole Miss still a 12.5-point favorite here, over under 60.5.
I'm going to go with Ole Miss here minus the 12.5. I mean, we kind of saw it with USF last week. Now, granted, a little bit of a different circumstance. They had 2 ranked games already going into Miami. I think they were definitely, a little bit emotionally fatigued. I think as they play them under different circumstances, it's a little bit closer. I'm not saying they win the game. But I'm going with Ole Miss here, 42, Tulane 28. I would definitely look into Tulane first half spread, but I think Ole Miss is going to cover the full game. So I'm going to take 42-28, just the skill level. And yes, Tulane is a program on the rise. I think every single year their roster is getting better and better. But currently they are still a G5 team. I hope that they prove me wrong. I would love to see Tulane win this game because I think, Coyle, like you said, right now it's Tulane USF, and then there's a gap between everyone else right now. Maybe Boise, if they right the ship, can get back in
Yeah,
there in that conversation. Who knows what happens in the MAC or the Sun Belt, these other conferences, like potentially JMU. But I think even with a loss, Tulane is fine right now. But I just think Ole Miss at the end of the day, more talent, and I'm going to ride with them minus 12.5. I'm going to go over 60.5.
yeah. On a side note, Joe, do you know if Austin Simmons was benched last week or if he was hurt? Because the guy that filled in for him, it was another game I wasn't able to catch just because of being at the Penn State game. But Trinidad Chambliss went in and filled in for Austin Simmons last week and absolutely lit it up. He went for 21 for 29 for 353 yards and a touchdown. Do you know if he's starting back this week? Because I haven't really seen anything regarding Austin Simmons.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that out right now because I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about how Trinidad Chambliss came in and like surprised everyone. They beat Arkansas. I'm just trying to look and see. It says in a surprise start. I'm looking to see if he was benched or not, or just he got hurt. But Austin Simmons was sidelined by a foot injury he sustained in last week's win against Kentucky. Do not know if he's starting this week or not yet.
Yeah, there's a quote here from Lane from September 15th. That was Monday. I would anticipate Austin being fine to play and being our starting quarterback. So that's something there. But looking at this Trinidad Chambliss guy, just on a side tangent about him, ESPN has him as a senior, but he has no other stats besides this season. So I don't know, be able to go in there last week and light it up for 350 and a touchdown. Pretty impressive performance. Let's see what the situation is there, because Austin Simmons wasn't really looking that great in the early going. So maybe he's got a kind of a short leash coming off that injury. But I'm going to go with Ole Miss as well at home here. This does kind of smell like one of those games that Ole Miss could get caught slipping, like we've seen over the past couple of years, Kentucky and Florida last year. Lane is kind of known to do that sometimes, slip up against some of these inferior opponents. Jake Retzlaff is a dog at Tulane. He's one of the funner players in the country to watch. I won't say that necessarily they upgraded at the quarterback spot when Darius Mensah transferred and Retzlaff came in here to Tulane, but it's pretty damn close of a comparison. College-wise, Jake Retzlaff is as good as it gets, really, kind of at the quarterback spot for your pure college player. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go in there and win this game. I definitely like Tulane to go in there and cover this 12.5. I think they can keep this close in the fourth quarter. But one of those situations where I think Ole Miss just in the trenches is going to be too big and kind of wear down on them by the end of this game. I'm going to go Ole Miss to win 38-28. So I'll take Tulane to cover the plus 12.5 and under 60.5. But it's excited to see what Tulane can do, because out of those power conference teams that they've played thus far, Ole Miss definitely their biggest test yet. All right, here's an awesome one too, Joe. We have a great slate, really, I think, from start to finish this week, all the way to our last game, which is at 11 o'clock kickoff. And that is a Big Ten matchup. Funny to say that, but we got number 21 Michigan at 2-1. They go to Nebraska, who is 3-0. Maybe the biggest Nebraska game, definitely of the Rule era. But maybe of the last 10 to 15 years. They get a 3:30 kick, CBS, all eyes on them here. Michigan still a 3-point favorite, though, at Nebraska. Over-under is 44.5.
I'm going with Nebraska here. I just think at some point you have to break through. This is going to be a crazy crowd. You have the 3:30 CBS. All eyes are on you. You got that game, and then you have the Auburn-Oklahoma game as well. Two massive games. Nebraska really has a shot to catapult themselves into the playoff conversation if they win this game, which I know kind of seems crazy. But I'm going to go with Nebraska here, 27-24. Matt Rule, Dylan Raiola. I think it's just going to click. I think Sharon Moore being out. I love Biff Poggi, and I know everyone's like rediscovering him again after he was fired from Charlotte and all that. They played Central Michigan last week. I know they looked great, but you saw what happened when they went on the road to Oklahoma. And I know Oklahoma's a great team. I think Oklahoma's better than Nebraska, but it's still really tough to go on the road when you're coming home and playing tomato cans and just, not kicking them down the road, beating the crap out of them. you have to go to Nebraska, who's going to be highly motivated. Those fans are going to be going nuts. That's why I'm going with Nebraska here. This is kind of just like a pure like atmosphere type pick for me. I think Michigan overall is a better team, but I think Nebraska's going to win this game.
The one thing I'm keeping my eyes on the most on this one, after reading up on it, listening to some different podcasts, the main thing to watch in this matchup, Bryce Underwood and his legs, his rushing ability. Last week, Biff Poggi kind of unleashed him a little bit, I think. 9 carries, 114 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The 2 games before that, 3 carries and 2 carries, both getting negative yards in those games. And when you look at what Nebraska did with Cincinnati in that first matchup in the regular season, Brennan Sorsby, the quarterback for Cincy, kind of went off with his legs in the second half, whether it was scrambles, design runs. I think that's something Michigan definitely noticed on film and is going to unleash Bryce Underwood. So look for a lot of quarterback runs in this game, and that's going to be, I think, the key to victory here for Nebraska. But like you said, Joe, it's one of those situations where Nebraska has to eventually have that breakthrough. Dylan Raiola has certainly taken a step from year 1 to year 2. Hasn't played great competition yet in year 2, but this is his biggest test, and I think he's ready for the moment. Though Nebraska under Matt Rule, I think I saw it was 1-6 against the spread, and 0-6 or 0-7 straight up against top 25 opponents. So one of those opportunities where they got to break through eventually. Let's see if this is the week to do it. I say it is. I like them to win this one at home. Another situation where like Utah, like if you're Nebraska, you probably want this game at home, rocking a little bit more, but this one is going to be pretty juiced up for a Nebraska team that's really been trying to get back to relevancy for quite a while now. So I like them to get this one done at home, 27-24, a little bit more points than the experts think. Nebraska +3 over 44.5. All right, we stay in the Big Ten. A lot of Big Ten games to finish it off this week. Number 9, Illinois at 3-0. At number 19, Indiana, also 3-0. 7:30 kick on NBC. Indiana's a 4.5-point favorite, over under 52.5, Joe.
I don't know what to think of this game. I really don't. I'm going Illinois 27, Indiana 19. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I'll take Illinois plus the 4.5. Indiana hasn't played anybody. Illinois, besides the game at Duke, hasn't played anybody. So this is just kind of me going with I believe in the Illinois defense. I picked them in the preseason. I think they're going to make the playoff. This is a huge game for them. And honestly, at the end of the day, when I kind of look at the teams head to head, like I can at least get more of a picture of who Illinois is with the game at Duke rather than Indiana playing, Old Dominion, Indiana State, like the Kennesaw State, like teams that aren't very good, bottom of the barrel G5 and, an FCS school. I'm really interested to see how they look against this Illinois defense. I think that they just haven't seen anything like it so far. I still think we're due for a little bit of an Indiana, like coming back down to earth. So I'm going to go with Illinois here, but I wouldn't be shocked if Indiana wins the game. Like these are 2 teams that I haven't really seen a whole lot from yet.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Indiana to win, but Illinois to cover. I was surprised to see this at 4.5. I think I've even seen it up to 5.5 at 6.5 at some books. I don't think Vegas really respects Illinois because I saw next week as well. There's a look at headline. USC travels to Illinois, and they have USC as a 1.5-point favorite right now. So Vegas doesn't really respect this Illinois team. I think on the field they've looked pretty well. That defense is great. Luke Altmaier is a really good, experienced quarterback. They certainly have the pieces to go to Indiana and win this game. But one of those situations, just like Nebraska, where we talked about, probably Indiana's biggest home game since definitely that Michigan game or last season that they won. But for that, kind of who knows? Like this is – I've heard a lot of people kind of call this, Joe, a playoff elimination game where they play some of the big boys down the stretch, but there's a good chance that the winner of this game finds themselves to like 10-2 and is in the playoff. The loser probably more so a 9-3 and on the outside looking in. So with Indiana getting that kind of home field bump in this one, nighttime game, that place is going to be rocking. That place is going to be awesome. Fernando Mendoza has been a really good transfer quarterback here to Indiana. I'm going to take the Hoosiers to win it at home, but Illinois to keep it within that number of 4.5. Give me 30-27. Indiana wins. So Illinois plus 4.5 over 52.5. And final game of the week, Michigan State at 3-0 at number 25, USC also 3-0. 11 o'clock kick on Fox. USC 16.5-point favorite, over under 56.5. Was very tempted to put in the Miami versus Florida game. Florida though 1-2, college game days there. Does that game really deserve to be the game day game? Like I would have probably rather done Auburn, Oklahoma, even Michigan, Nebraska potentially. Oklahoma is probably going to be on in a couple of weeks for the Red River game. But I thought this was an interesting one because USC, I think, looked really good out of the gates. And Michigan State, hats off to them as well, starting 3-0. I think their win total was like 4.5 or 5.5. Aiden Childs looked really good. So interested to hear your thoughts on this matchup, Joe.
Yeah, Coyle. I mean, kind of like what you're saying too. And I know ESPN, they have the deal with the SEC. Illinois, Indiana. When's the last time that's been a big game? Go to Indiana. You could highlight those two teams. Who knows how many more, games you're going to get with programs that are a little bit off the beaten path, and that's what makes game day so great is when they go to like the James Madisons of the world and you get these crazy crowds. Like if they went to Indiana, there'd be a huge crowd. People would be going nuts. But back to the game at hand here. I'm going USC 45, Michigan State 31. I'd really, USC's offense has been going crazy this year. 73 points against Missouri State, 59 points against Georgia Southern. They looked fine at Purdue. That's kind of you go across the country to Purdue. It's really tough to get up for that game. Coming home against Michigan State, who was also 3-0. I believe they won against Boston College in overtime, or they scored late to win the game. I think Michigan State's, definitely improved from last year. I still don't think they'll win this game. I'll go USC 45, Sparty 31. I'll take Michigan State to cover the 16.5. I feel like it's a big number for two Power 5 schools. And, it's not like Michigan State is a Purdue or a Northwestern. Like, I think they're still a pretty solid team. So I'm going to take Michigan State plus the 16.5. I'm going to go over 56.5.
Yeah, I'm going to take USC as well in this one, 38-24. USC's my team here at number 25, where if we look up in December and they're in the Big Ten title game, I'm not going to be surprised. The defense has definitely taken a leap in year 2 under D'Anton Lynn on the defensive side of the ball. Jaden Mayava in his second year as the quarterback has looked awesome as well. We know they got speed on the outside. We know they got speed in the backfield. The talent's all there. Lincoln Riley's a really good coach. It seems like it just took him a little bit to get it kind of cooking here to the full ability potentially at USC. I mean, let's not forget too, Joe, they were a play away in the Pac-12 title game from going to the college football playoff with Caleb Williams just a few years ago too. So it's not like this is a USC dead program. I think we still got to put respect on their name. I will take Michigan State to cover that 16.5. I'm going to go 38-24. So I'm going to go with the over hitting there as well. But here's my stat of the game for this one. Since 2021, when Lincoln Riley took over at USC, they are the number 1 team in the country at hitting the over, 37-18 to the over, hitting in 67.3% of their games. So love that play on Saturday night against Michigan State. That offense for Michigan State has looked better. Aiden Childs really taking a leap here in year 2. So I like him and Mayava to go score for score, kind of over 56.5. USC gets the win, but Michigan State gets the cover there at the end. All right, the end of the show, the dog of the day and the lock of the week. We both went 2-0 last week on the dog of the day, Joe. So start us off. Give me your dog of the day for this week.
I'm going with Maryland here, plus 10 at Wisconsin. That's my dog of the day, dog of the week. Wisconsin has not looked good to start the season. They beat Miami of Ohio 17-0, 42-10 against Middle Tennessee, and they weren't exactly dominating that game early on. Bama smoked them. They were just outclassed. Now you got to come home, and then you got a sandwich spot here. You have to go to Michigan next week. You're starting Big Ten play. I think 10's a lot of points. I was thinking about making this my lock of the week. I went with the dog of the day instead. I think Maryland could win the game outright. I really am very, very low on this Wisconsin team. Even coming home, I know Wisconsin fans will pack out and show out, but this is a Wisconsin team too going forward. You just look at the rest of their schedule. If they were to lose this game, I don't really know how many more wins when you look at the schedule you have like as a lock. You go at Michigan. This is after Maryland. At Michigan, home Iowa, home Ohio State, at Oregon, home Washington, at Indiana, home Illinois, at Minnesota. You could very well see a 3-4 win Wisconsin team, and Luke Fickell, who I thought was going to be a lot better at Wisconsin. It's not panned out so far. I'm going to go with Maryland plus the 10. I just think the vibes are really bad at Wisconsin right now.
Yeah, that is a ugly situation there. Moving to Wisconsin at the time, I thought it was like, all right, a little bit of a step up, but he took he took Cincinnati to the playoff, and then they were transitioning over into the Big 12. Like, he could have kept it going there and made them kind of like the number one program in the Big 12. Bit of a head scratching situation, but I could certainly see a scenario where he gets fired. Cincinnati fires Satterfield and just brings Luke Fickell back. I think that could kind of happen as well. My dog of the day, the final battle of the Iron Skillet. I saw there are actually no more matchups scheduled for this. Maybe something will come down the line, but the rivalry game between SMU and TCU. SMU is a 7-point dog on the road at TCU. I feel like every time I've watched this game, it's like 52 to like 40, 48 or something, like crazy back and forth game, a lot of points all the time. I think this one's close, probably a game that even comes down to like overtime, and you might get screwed with a touchdown in overtime or a 2-point conversion in overtime or something. So maybe hope for the 2-point conversions at one point. But SMU +7 at TCU in this rivalry game, the final rivalry game between these two schools, at least for now. Hopefully it's not a situation like Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, but I'll take SMU +7 in this spot, and I definitely think that they can win this one outright. All right, and our lock of the week, Joe, you're perfect on the season with your lock of the week, so let's keep it rolling. What do you got for us this week?
So I'm going with the Memphis Tigers +7.5, hosting Arkansas. Arkansas, this is a really tough spot. They're coming off that loss against Ole Miss on the road. You have Notre Dame coming to town next week, and sandwiched in between that, you got to go to Memphis, Tennessee. This Memphis crowd is going to be really fired up. One thing about Memphis that I do give them a lot of credit is that when they're rolling, their fans show out. Like, people that live in Memphis are Memphis fans. You know, it's not, oh, I'm a Tennessee fan, but I live in Memphis, so I'll root for Memphis. It's like, no, they're actually like big Memphis fans. They support the school. I think it's going to be a really good crowd. And Memphis, you know, another one of those teams too, Coyle. You know, we were talking a lot about USF, talking a lot about Tulane. Memphis wins this game, you get a win against an SEC school. You know, I don't care what Arkansas finishes with. SEC, you know, holds a lot of weight, especially if Arkansas picks off a team or two in the SEC. Then you can kind of say, hey,
so far.
Yeah. And also too, Memphis already played 2 games on the road at Georgia State, at Troy, getting to come home. I think the fans are going to be really fired up. I'm going with Memphis to cover +7.5. I'd sprinkle the money line as well. Not too confident about that, but I do think they keep it within at least a touchdown.
Well, my lock of the week, Joe, I'm staying with that game. Arkansas, Memphis over 62.5. I think this is a shootout. We've seen historically Memphis under their coach able to put up points. They have a very quarterback-friendly system. They spread it around. They throw the ball around the yard. In Arkansas, their offense has looked awesome so far. Taylor Green is the quarterback name that nobody is talking nearly enough about in college football thus far. He's a dual-threat guy. He's a fun, like 6'5", 6'6", Cam Newton type of size. Not as big, not as strong, but he's able to run like him, and he's got the height. He's a very dynamic quarterback, and he's a player where if Arkansas finds a way to win 8-9 games and get into that kind of mix there, he's going to have the numbers to be in the Heisman consideration. Another product of a Bobby Petrino system at the quarterback spot in his second year in this system, just like Lamar Jackson was. He takes this big, massive leap. And he's playing some awesome football. So I like for these two teams to go score for score. I don't think Arkansas has much of a defense. I think Memphis will be able to put up some points with them. I like Arkansas to win that game, but probably keep it within 3 to 6 points. I'd probably say that. So we hit the over 62.5 there, and then we also get the Memphis to cover +7.5. So, Joe, that'll do it for this week's show. Let's hopefully you can keep it rolling on fire. I think I've done pretty well thus far as well, but we're all counting on you for the lock of the week now, each and every week until proven otherwise. So, thank you everyone for tuning in. We will be back next week with probably the best slate of the season. I tweeted it out earlier, but we have Penn State, Oregon. We have Georgia, Alabama. We have who else? Let me pull it up real quick. We have Ohio State, USC, Illinois, Notre Dame, Arkansas, LSU, Ole Miss, Auburn, A&M. So next week's an awesome one. If you got a lady friend in your life, I recommend probably taking her out this week over next week. So thank you everyone for tuning in. As always, please like, please subscribe, and we'll talk next week.